Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast, the instant reaction show from Ohio State's 28-17 win over Penn State. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, first time Ohio State has really had a four-quarter game, as Ryan Day promised. He kept promising and then would fail to live up to those promises. He did not fail to live up to those promises today because not that it ever looked like the Buckeyes were going to lose, but I do recall at one point after one of the fumbles, you said something like, did that fumble just go off of Nate Clements' foot?
Does that sound like something I would have said?
Maybe I heard what you were thinking. You didn't actually say it.
I'm pretty sure Nate Clements doesn't have any eligibility, so that would be a pretty weird thing
to say.
No,
you were comparing it to the Michigan State comeback at the time.
You're being very presumptuous about what you claim that I meant about something that I may or may not have said during the course of the game. Yes, that did.
Who's to know?
That did feel, for at least about 5 to 10 minutes, like, oh man, they might blow this. Because Ohio State had completely dominated the first half and was only up 14 points. And then got up 21, and it was like, okay, they're up 3 scores.
Ball game.
Now that should be it. And all of a sudden, touchdown, fumble, field goal, and it felt like the game was very much in the balance for quite a good 5-10 minutes.
But then I will also give you credit. After Ohio State held them to a field goal to make it 21-17, you said, I think that was pretty much it.
That was it. Yeah, that was Penn State's chance. Like, Penn State had a chance to. I mean, this was kind of the story of the game in some ways. Hey, Penn State had a chance to do something, and they just didn't quite do it. I mean, first half, and
even coming into this game, we talked about what would it take for Penn State to win. A lot would have to go their way, and then that would even things up. And a lot did go their way. It did even things up, but Ohio State was still able to do enough. And if you would have told me, like, Ohio State will score 28, I don't see any way Penn State scores enough to. They would have scored 31, like, ever to beat this team. Yeah. They were struggling, and then they were almost better off with Will Levis instead of Sean Clifford for some reason. But I think at that point, Jeff Hafley, after the game, because they were just running the ball pretty much, and Jeff Hafley didn't want to send too much after him because they were still kind of waiting for them to throw the ball off of their run game. So they were kind of conservative at that point, just thinking, like, he's the backup quarterback, how darn good could he be? And the Penn State's already going to be conservative. They weren't worried about losing the game from 6-yard run, 7-yard run, 2-yard run. They just didn't want to give up the big plays, and they didn't. Right.
That's been Jeff Hafley's overriding theme for the year is just don't give up big plays, make the other team drive against you. Penn State's touchdown drive, the first one, 9 plays, 75 yards. That's a legitimate drive. Second touchdown drives, 2 plays, 12 yards, and then the field goal drive, 8 plays, 11 yards. Yeah. I mean, if Ohio State doesn't fumble the ball, there's no indication that Penn State's going to score more than a touchdown at any point during the game because they had one sustained drive all game long.
Yeah, and would they have 50-some yards at the half, total yards?
Yeah, it was something like 250 to 50 at halftime. Yeah, and Ryan Day said he basically went into the locker room at halftime. You look at the stats, and it's like, how is the score only 14-0?
Yeah, there were a lot of people thinking that Justin Fields fumbles at the goal line. That's one that they didn't get. They had opportunities at the end of the half that they kind of went sideways with some poor pass protection. And then that last possession in the first half where they just walked off the field, Ryan Day said at that point he just wanted to get back in the locker room and regroup because things just weren't going right. And I don't think he really trusted the offense at that point, so he just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that seemed very much like you don't want to, you feel bad going in 14-0 with that dominant of a half, but if you don't trust your offensive line and Justin Fields gets strip sacked and they run it back for a touchdown and then you go in at 14-7 after that dominant of a half, that was understandable. I think we both expected him to try and heave one into the end zone, but when they didn't, it was like, all right, you can kind of understand the thinking there.
Plus, they get the ball out of the third quarter.
Exactly. And then they get the ball and they go right down the field and score, and it's 21-0. And at that point, you would need to fumble the ball 3 times, fumble the ball 4 times, lose 3 fumbles in the second half in order to make it a game again, and they did. To their credit, they did.
Yes, and so that's pretty much the story of the game. But they scored when they needed to. They got that 4th touchdown, went right down the field, and gave themselves some insurance. Tom, watching this game, Chase Young is
good at football.
I want to ask you, Tom, where is he now? Greatest Buckeyes of all time, because I think he may be number 2 for me now, ahead of Antoine Winfield.
Wow,
behind Orlando Pace, which makes me now want to see Chase Young versus Orlando Pace in college.
I was going to say Orlando Pace is 45 now, so I don't think it'd be very fair.
Back in college.
Okay, yeah, I mean that would be really legitimately an interesting, exciting thing to watch because, Orlando Pace has forever been the best Buckeye player I have ever seen in my life. For me right now, Chase Young is clearly the best defensive player I've ever seen in my life play at Ohio State, and so
where are you putting him?
He's getting there. Where
are you putting him, Tom? If he's the best defensive player at Ohio State you've ever seen,
let's now. He has. I'm going to grade him an incomplete right now. He has, if he comes out and has 4 sacks against Michigan, and has another big day in the Big Ten championship game, and is continuing to produce against, if they play Clemson or LSU, I think it is a legitimate conversation, and that is about the most glowing thing I think I could say about someone is it is a legitimate conversation whether this person is as good or better than Orlando Pace in college.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Especially when we came into the season thinking he's not a Bosa.
Yeah, he's like a backup. Yeah.
He's like a cousin to a Bosa, not as good as the Bosas. Mm-hmm. He's like a Kumaro.
Mm-hmm. He's a you went from they're not quite poor man's Bosa, but close to Bosa. In August we would have said he's like a Bosa almost, is incredible high praise.
Oh yeah.
But he's like the rich man's Bosa right now, and considering how much the Bosa has gotten on their NFL contracts, that's pretty rich.
So Wisconsin 4 sacks, Penn State 3 sacks. Mm-hmm. The 2 top teams Ohio State has faced, Chase Young has wrecked them both.
Chase Young has he owns the single season sack record at Ohio State right now. Just against Wisconsin and Penn State, he got halfway to the existing Ohio State single season sack record. If you were listening to this right now, pull the car over before your brain starts leaking out your ears from thinking about that.
Just imagine if he played Wisconsin and Penn State every week.
Imagine if he'd played against Rutgers and Maryland.
I think maybe 2 or 3 sacks total because but still, he'd be at 19 and a half. Or it could have been 8 sacks. I don't think he would have played much, but
the Terrell Suggs record of 22, that's the official NCAA record. 22 sacks in 2002 for Arizona State. That's the official NCAA record because they only started counting sacks as a stat in 2000. Derek Thomas has the unofficial record that's 27 for Alabama in 1988. That would have been in play had he played all 15 potential games this year.
It's been incredible to watch, and it doesn't surprise you anymore. It's just that's what I told you. Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to do. Before, on the last drive of the game, we were down on the field. I think there was a Penn State player injured. There was a timeout, and Chase Young is telling the refs they are going to hold me. So just watch. On these last couple of plays, they're going to hold me.
How do you think he knew that? What basis would he have had to say that after the first 50 or 60 plays he was on the field today?
I heard he was being held a lot. I wasn't watching to see how much he was being held. I wonder on TV if you look at it, and there's 20 plays where he's being almost tackled, certainly held. Mm-hmm. Because what else are you supposed to do? You can't just let your quarterback die.
Right. I was looking through pictures from the end of the game when I was down on the field. And there's one where he's coming off the edge, and he's getting a hug. He's getting. I took that as a sign of love and respect, but maybe I misinterpreted that.
Career high 9 tackles as well. He was jumping all over the place. Jeff Hafley said, he was this week. Same Chase Young, but maybe the game just a touch quicker than he was against Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Phooey, man, that dude. Speaking of defensive ends, let's talk about Jonathan Cooper.
Oh yes.
Before the game, it was announced by Ohio State that Jonathan Cooper will redshirt this season and return next year. Still can play one more game this year. Mm-hmm. He's played 3 so far.
What do you save that one for?
You save it for the last one.
What's the last game?
That would have to be, see, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the rub.
Right. Initially, my thought was, you just save it for the championship game. If it's a game you think you're probably going to win, you still prepare him, you dress him.
Mm-hmm. The answer is you save him for Clemson.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
That's the correct answer there. Yep.
Yeah, so you play him against the best team you're going to face.
Yes.
And then you probably still give him a ring if you win it all.
I mean,
don't be a jerk about it.
I mean,
don't give him a pair of gold pants.
Right.
He's not playing in the game. Don't give him a pair of gold pants.
Yeah, it's that's a real head start for the 2020 Buckeyes to have him back, because someone asked Chase Young after the game whether Chase Young was leaving, and it was like, no, Chase Young's not going to answer that question right now. But yes, Chase Young, of course, is going to leave. So you lose Chase Young, you're losing Robert Landers, you're losing Devon Hamilton, you're losing Jayshon Cornell. I mean, you're losing a bunch of seniors off that defensive line. To have a returning captain there, because you have the pieces, you have the talent. You saw Zach Harrison. There was one play from Zach Harrison where it was like third and it was right after Young had that sack like a fumble on a sack down at the Penn State 1 yard line. It was like 3rd and 1,000,000, and Zach Harrison's in there, which was like, wow, this is a big spot to put a true freshman in. And then Levis, I think they just ran like a quarterback draw kind of play. And that's a moment where you sort of expect a true freshman to just get a little too excited, like, I'm going to make a big play right here.
Take yourself out of the play.
Get too far upfield, get yourself out of the play, and give up a play. Yeah. And it was such a smart, disciplined play. He kind of held his ground, and then he ended up, Levis, I think, might have gotten past him, but Harrison came over, tackled him for not much of a gain or no gain, maybe a yard, get off the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, it shows up as just a tackle on the stat sheet.
Right, but it's more.
But it's a big moment, and it's a true freshman making an incredibly smart play.
Yeah, and he's no longer a true freshman.
No.
He started, he's been in big moments. He's learning from some guys who are really, really good. And not even on the defensive line, the guys they'll be losing, Malik Harrison, possibly an entire secondary. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need as many. Like Ryan Day talked this week, and I asked him a couple weeks ago about the fifth-year guys, and he said you need fifth-year guys. He loves fifth-year guys. And now you're going to have one back next year who is going to just, he's seen a lot, and he's been through a lot. This year alone, not being the player that everybody expected. I mean, he can relay a lot of things to his teammates moving down the road. And so that's a good start for the Buckeyes. And I know he's going to be, just like we thought he'd be itching this year to put up some numbers because he hasn't. Mm-hmm. Next year's going to be his very last chance.
Yes.
So you're going to see the best Jonathan Cooper, and hopefully he's healthy for the entirety.
That also tells you a little bit about how secure they are with the depth at defensive end right now, that they're willing to, if he's potentially healthy enough to play one more game. We don't know his exact level of health right now. But if he's healthy enough to play one more game and they're willing to kind of punt it to next year, that tells you something about their depth. I do wonder about that, though, because if he was healthy, would he, this is about as big as games get as a collegiate player. So, that would be hard if you really were healthy to be able to go and to be willing to sit those out. So I wonder about that, but
Well, and the talent they have, a 70% Jonathan Cooper probably isn't as good as a 95% Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith, Tyler Friday, those guys, because those guys are good.
Yeah.
And they're full speed. Mm-hmm. And Cooper, one of his best asset is probably his speed. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't have that because he has a bum ankle, there's give and take there, and sometimes he's not giving enough. Not through his own effort, he's just not able to give enough.
Well, having that fifth-year guy back next year reminds me a little bit of KJ Hill coming back this year, where KJ Hill could have gone pro after last year. That was, a lot of his buddies from that wide receiver group that had been, Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin, Johnny Dixon, they all went pro because they'd all exhausted their eligibility. KJ Hill could have gone. There was some talk that he would go after last year, had a big year last year, ended up coming back to be a leader in that room. that's a big deal because he is. I mean, that's something that I wrote about this week. He has sort of set that example for those younger guys. So now he sets the example. Ben Victor sets the example. Austin Mack sets the example. Now next year, that's Chris Olave's room.
Yep, and it goes back to Evan Spencer handing it down to Michael Thomas and Terry McLaurin handing it down to KJ Hill to, and so on, and Chris Olave to Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba to Marvin Harrison to the 2022 kids. Tell me, Tom, who are they now?
I don't think I know any 2022 kids. It's the Ohio State version, Ohio State wide receiver version of the begats in the Bible. Just Evan Spencer begat Michael Thomas.
Yes, exactly. Pete Werner. If there are still any Pete Werner haters out there,
you're wrong.
You got to stop.
Yeah.
Stop watching football. Just watch Masterpiece Theater. Maybe that's more up your lane because football isn't for you. Because this dude was awesome today, defending Pat Freiermuth. Not for much of the day. He gave up some catches, 6 yards, 5 yards. I had one of our patrons in the DMs DMing me saying Freiermuth is German for 5 yards. It was not bad.
Yeah, I mean, when we had one of our preview shows last week, I said, you got to figure he's going to get his, 5 catches, 75 yards, a touchdown. Right. 6 catches, 40 yards, no touchdowns, long of 11 for Pat Freiermuth. If you are leaning on your tight end and he is your leading receiver and his long is 11, you're asking a lot. You got to complete a lot of passes to get down the field, and when you're completing 16 of 28, and half of your passes basically are falling incomplete, the math doesn't work out there.
No, and I know I saw people on Twitter talking this week that this would be a game where you see Brendan White because of Pat Freiermuth, and all week I was like, they love Pete Werner and they trust Pete Werner to defend anybody they put him up against, and he was there. He had a couple of pass breakups, although I would say one pass breakup, one drop. But he was fantastic. Career-high 10 tackles, just really, really solid. And they tried to go after him. And like I said, they completed some passes, but you're not going to beat Ohio State 6 yards at a time.
No, and I mean, there have been people this year that have asked us, so what's wrong with Brendan White? It's like, I don't know that anything's wrong with Brendan White. Pete Werner is just doing all the stuff they need. I mean, he is... The bullet position is when they talked about it this spring, it was there's a really good downfield wide receiver, or tight end. That's when you're going to see the bullet. It's Pete Werner's doing that. So Pete Werner has taken over. He's, instead of the Sam or the bullet, Pete Werner has basically just taken over as the Sam and the bullet. He's just doing it all.
He's the Pete.
Yeah.
And he's done it really well. And
he was someone who I remember Urban Meyer just loved.
Oh, yeah.
Urban Meyer just loved Pete Werner. And last year, he would talk about Pete Werner being just an amazing player, and the on-field production was it didn't quite match the rhetoric. This year, you're seeing why Urban Meyer loves Pete Werner.
Tom, I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't think Greg Schiano helped him much last year. I know it's the first time somebody's saying that.
I don't know where any of this is coming from.
Wow, eight solo tackles, 2 breakups, and I'm glad, although I want people to appreciate him, and I know most people do. I want the haters to appreciate him, but what they're seeing is another catch by Freiermuth. Come on, and it's but now it's 2nd and 4, so I mean, you're fine.
And if it happened on 2nd down, it's 3rd and 4. And is Penn State going to do it on 3rd and 4? No, probably not.
So get off of his back and continue to appreciate him because you have him one more year. Malik Harrison, typical quiet, awesome game. 9 tackles, 2 tackles for losses, wherever you need him to be, does nothing wrong. Did actually, though, get planted on Journey Brown's touchdown run, if I recall. Or on one of those runs, one of those longer runs. Yeah. Got stiff arm down. It wasn't the touchdown. It was the one before that, I believe. So, yes, a mistake. And that was the series where it was the worst tackling we've seen by the Buckeyes this year.
Yeah, that Journey Brown touchdown, it was 4 or 5 Buckeyes had a hand on him, and no one could bring him down.
And they lost him, and that's a great run by him. Credit him, but also blame Ohio State.
Well, that was one that jumped out at you wow, that was some really bad tackling. And I think I might have said that to you, that is the worst tackling I've seen from them all year. And then it was I can't really remember a play where multiple players missed a tackle before. That was just such a common thing last year, and guys being out of position and stuff. And it really jumped out because it was I I haven't seen that this year. That was very strange.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch. And Jeff Hafley actually talked about Jordan Fuller after the game, how he's the cleaner. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that comes in and cleans everything up. And he's like, I want you guys to appreciate how difficult this is. Imagine it's you and you're one-on-one and you are the last line of defense and there's just nothing but green around the both of you. And he never gives up the big hit. Mm-hmm. And he always makes the tackle, always makes a stop. But he's always been a fantastic tackler. Even going back to, remember the third down stop against Saquon Barkley 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Here, it was maybe the play of the game, maybe saved the game for the Buckeyes and kept them in it, where Penn State picks up a first down there. And who knows when Ohio State gets the ball back. But Jordan Fuller may not have the interceptions, but ever since he stepped in for Malik Hooker, it's not like they've lacked anything from him. He's just always solid.
Yeah, and he is also just the heart and soul of this team. Like people, sort of will default to, well, Chase Young has got to be the leader of the defense, and Justin Fields has got to be the leader of the offense. So one of them has got to be the kind of heart and soul of the whole team. I think it's Jordan Fuller, because the way Ryan Day talks about him. He said, he's the guy you want your son to be and you want your daughter to marry, basically. And before the game, I was down in the tunnel for the senior day stuff. He was the one who was going all the way down that line. Every single guy, from the walk-ons to the defensive stars, he was there hugging every single one of those guys. Like, it was just one of those, like, kind of glimpse behind the curtain things where you kind of got a sense, like, this is the guy who's like, the head dude in the locker room.
Yeah, and a candidate for the academic Heisman, I believe. But Tom, first, breaking news. Mm-hmm. The Ohio State club football team, down 14-0 in the semis, end up rallying to win the game 17-14 to secure a spot in the NCFA title game.
That's big.
Congratulations to the Buckeyes, the club football team, who has become a popular topic around the Ohio State parts because of, frankly, us.
Yeah, I mean, would you say we deserve all of the credit? I mean, if you talked about Jonathan Cooper maybe deserving a ring.
Right.
Do we deserve a ring if the club football team wins a national championship? I say yes.
Yeah, I mean, we should get them our Jostin sizes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's do that right now. We're going to have to go. No. Anybody else? Shaun Wade.
Oh, also, man, Shaun Wade had
also,
a day.
Matched up against Fired with the Times, matched up against KJ Hamler, and that dude. I go back to the very final play, maybe for Penn State. One of the very final plays. Will Levis drops back, throws to KJ Hamler. Shaun Wade knocks it down.
Shaun Wade got his hand on the ball. That was a 4th and 5 or something with about 2.5 minutes left.
A little bit of revenge, or not revenge, but maybe closure on the touchdown that he gave up last year, 93 yards. They went at him, and he said no.
Nope.
And he's said no a lot this year.
Yeah, that was a very impressive play, because that was, that's one of those things where it's 4th down. You don't want to do something stupid and get a pass interference penalty. Mm-hmm. Just knock it down. You don't need to pick it off. Just knock it down. And that's what he did. Got his hand on the ball.
Although
that was the moment that I think that was the play where I tweeted it was Michigan week, because it was like, all right, now they're up 10, they've got the ball, there's 2.5 minutes left. Like that was kind of the play that sealed that game.
Yep, and he had one play earlier in the third or fourth quarter. He broke on a pass to KJ Hamler, went right through his hands. KJ Hamler catches it for a first down, and he wanted that one. I don't know if he's going to kick himself for it because they got the win and they're fine. But, he wanted to have a big day this week. And even though Ryan Day or Jeff Hafley wanted to talk to him about, don't worry about last year, forget about last year. There is no last year with this defense anymore. Mm-hmm. Ryan Day loves the fact that they've been through their struggles, but last year is so far away from this defense. I mean, it's a different world, different planes of existence.
Yeah, it is incredible to think that these are the same players. And, yes, you expect a certain amount of growth from year to year. Yes, Chase Young was kind of hobbled with ankle injuries last year, and he's been healthy this year. But the whole unit has been night and day. And, you can give as much credit as you want to Jeff Hafley, Greg Madison.
Okay, I will.
Matt Barnes. Al Washington. I mean, and
maybe Larry Johnson.
Maybe Larry Johnson. I mean, he was part of the bad defense. So how do you know? Maybe they have overcome.
It's amazing they were able to overcome his taint.
Yes, if Larry Johnson. I don't think we've ever said anything nice about Larry Johnson and his ability to develop defensive linemen on this podcast. So, that was he's just unbelievable. I mean, it's you look at the coaching staff that Ryan Day has this year, and we've talked about that in the past. Like, the hard thing is the second coaching staff, but man, he nailed the first coaching staff.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer always talked about wanting to have the best coaching staff in America. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. You can make an argument here.
When did you say he didn't, Gerd?
Who's to say? I'm not an arbiter of opinions. I'm not a judger of judgments. I'm just a guy on a podcast in the rain.
I'm not an arbiter of opinions. We should get a T-shirt with that. That's
Barry and Browning, Tough Borland. They both had 7 tackles today. So I think this whole middle linebacker experiment is working out for both of them.
But
Baron Browning, again, pass rushing at the end of the game, finished with 2.5 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks. He, that dude is another dude.
Yeah.
That guy's a dude.
Yeah.
And he's playing really, really well. And I know he's a guy where people want to see more of him. I think they're doing it a pretty good split right now, how they are doing it. And because Tough Borland gives them stuff that Barry Browning doesn't. Barry Browning obviously gives them stuff that Tough Borland doesn't. And as long as it's working, man, just keep putting them out there and letting them go.
You give up 3.5 yards per play against Penn State. I don't think there's a legitimate concern here right now. Now, next week against Michigan, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think coming into this game, we both thought that Michigan was probably going to be a bigger challenge for Ohio State than Penn State was. And, Penn State, that game looked close, but that was Ohio State keeping that game close when if Ohio State doesn't turn the ball over 3 times in the second half, that game's not even a
What happens if they turn it over 3 times in the second half next week, Tom?
I would professionally advise that they don't do that if they are interested in winning.
Oh,
now,
so you're a professional advisor now.
Yes,
Ooh,
yes.
Put that on a T-shirt.
I might just do that. This is a week when Ohio State's going to have to not play like they did in the third quarter this week against Penn State. I mean, we've talked all year about the second quarter Buckeyes and just how the roof falls in on the opposing team. The third quarter was like, this is like the anti-second quarter Buckeyes. So if they play like they did in the first and second and fourth quarter against Penn State, they will not have an issue. They should not do what they did today. Don't do what Donnie Don't does.
Yes, and talking about the offense, was it maybe because that's about when the rain started.
The fumbles. Yeah, the fumbles with a wet football certainly.
If you're looking for a silver lining,
no one said that, but. Oh, I guess one of the turnovers was in the first half because that was Fields' turnover right at the goal line, and that was he got hit. That was really getting.
I'm still not sure about the second Fields fumble.
That looked like he was down. There was a replay they showed on the Ohio Stadium scoreboard where they, how they're supposed to not show controversial replays. They didn't just show it. They showed it, and they froze it with his knee on the ground and the ball in his arm, and it was like, well, they're going to have to overturn this, and then they didn't.
And how did the crowd react?
It wasn't a particularly warm reaction. Wasn't particularly supportive.
No.
So
what a cranky bunch.
Yeah. There were. I mean, that was a game where there were long stretches where a bunch of stuff went against Ohio State calls. I mean, there was a holding call against, I think it was Thayer Munford. Yeah. That was not a great holding call.
Especially when you
figure, it was one of those you could call this hold on any play in the game that killed one drive. Fields fumbles on about the 6-inch line, close enough that he was actually ruled to have scored first, and then they overturned it. There was a lot of stuff that went against Ohio State, and they still won by 11. That's impressive.
The J.K. Dobbins. Just the way they ran the ball. Ryan Day was asked about that at the outset. Like, did you come in planning to run this much? And he said no. What was his reasoning if you remember, I don't know that it was. He wanted to kind of slow the game down,
well, once they got up, once it was the
right.
second half and they're up, it was like, okay, keep the clock moving.
Because J.K. even had 20 carries at halftime,
right?
And Fields probably had 6 or 7. They also had a ton of plays. They had like 46 plays or something.
Right. They run a lot of plays in the first half. I think that they might have just they probably came in. No one explicitly said this, but I think they probably came in thinking, okay, we're going to throw the ball because that's where the weakness is. Once they saw in the first half, hey, turns out we can run the ball.
First carry is 22 yards.
Right, exactly. Like, just stick with what's working. And they did. And once you're up by 2 scores, then you're running the ball to keep the clock moving because you're up 2 scores. It's the fourth quarter. You're able to run the ball somewhat consistently. Penn State has shown no ability to drive.
Yeah.
At that point, unless you turn the ball over, you're going to win.
Yep. Justin Fields, 21 carries, although 3 of those were sacks. So say 18 rushes. Finished with 68 yards, but 28 of those were sack losses.
35 were losses. So yeah, 100. So 18 carries for 103 yards, and then
pretty good.
Yeah.
And the new wrinkle this week was the empty sets and let him go one-on-one, except with the middle linebacker. But it wasn't always one-on-one because sometimes Josh Myers
goes out. Yeah.
Like, what are you supposed to do there?
Yeah, one of those fourth down plays. It was 4th and 4, 4th and 5 for Ohio State. It was the drive where they scored their second touchdown. Yeah. Fourth down, 4th and 5, right smack dab in the middle of field goal range. Ryan Day, nope. Going to go, and they went 5 wide, and he said they got the look they wanted. Josh Myers kind of leaks out, blocks that Mike backer, and there's just no one there. And Justin Fields, I think that was Justin Fields' longest run of the day, 22 yards on 4th and 5. I mean, that's got to be pretty backbreaking for Penn State.
Yeah, and it's a nice play to have in your back pocket. Mm-hmm. And Tom, you wrote about this. It was an example of Ryan Day playing two-way, went forward on 4th down twice in that drive. Whereas James Franklin punted once on 4th and 6, 4th and 7 from Ohio's 42.
Easy there, Brady Hoke. It's Ohio State.
And then punted once from Ohio State's 36 or 37.
He punted. He punted on the first drive of the game, 4th and 4 from the Ohio State 42. It's like you just ran a quarterback draw for 5 yards. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's 3rd and 4. You throw a pass, and then you punt it away at the plus 42 on 4th and 4. I mean, coaches talk about wanting to set the tone for the game. That set the tone for the game. Well, there were 2 of those in the first half that were just. You want to, I get the idea you want to lean on your defense, but by the time he did it the second time, there was no indication the Penn State defense was going to stop Ohio State. So you gave up a 91-yard drive the first time you tried this. Why would you think, oh, well, you know what we should do? We should punt them down inside the 10, because what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. And they lost the game against Minnesota for being conservative and not taking advantage of field position. Mm-hmm. Tom, they did this twice. They gave up 2 possessions. How many possessions did they lose by?
I would say roughly 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had the Minnesota game. If you don't remember, they had the ball 4th and goal at the 3, kicked the field goal right before half. They were down 14 points, kicked a field goal. You probably should go there, but okay. Like a lot of coaches are not going to do that. Okay. They had a penalty on Minnesota, so then it's 4th and goal at the 1.5-yard line. Like you're closer than a 2-point conversion. How many opportunities are you going to get that close where it's one play for a yard and a half? No, we don't want to take the points off the board. So this is kind of a thing with him. He very consistently plays way too conservatively, doesn't use his timeouts right. I mean, there's just a lot of game management stuff that just it has been bad for a while and it hasn't gotten any better. And Ryan Day coached it the way you're supposed to coach it, and when you play to win, sometimes you win.
Yeah, and we even talked about, I think, in the pregame show this morning, like, what was James Franklin going to do to cost his team opportunities or even the win.
Ta-da!
There you go. There's your answer, Fishbulb.
There's your answer, Fishbulb.
You want to do some questions?
Let's do some questions.
Let's do that questions.
All right. Ryan says, Jim Bowman calling plays today. Interesting how conservative they got and still turned the ball over. Perhaps they learned the lesson to never be conservative. I mean, I don't mind the fourth quarter stuff. Yeah. That's when it's raining, you're up a couple scores. The opposing team hasn't shown any inclination to drive the field on your defense. At that point, limit their number of opportunities. Yeah. Limit the number of opportunities for them to have kind of a fluky play break somewhere.
When you are turning it over, it's human nature to be like, let's stop doing crazy stuff. Let's regroup. Let's do some bread and butter stuff, and you just try not to screw up anymore. And Tom, when you throw the ball, mm-hmm. 3 things can happen. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are bad. Mm-hmm. Sometimes 3 of them are bad.
Mm-hmm. So, when you punt the ball, basically nothing good can happen. Brad says, with the turnovers, Ohio State blows them out, kept them in the game. Michigan will not be so fortunate. Chase Young is still the best player in the country. Heisman voters, take note. I am not a Heisman voter, but if I was, I know who I would vote for.
He is so much better than anybody else at his position or on defense. Joe Burrow is not that same. He is not above everybody else the same way that Chase Young is. Mm-hmm. Like the valley between Chase Young and the second best guy on defense or the second best defensive end is so far more distance than Joe Burrow to whoever the second best quarterback in the nation is. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys to choose from. But, that's Joe Burrow's award. We all know it.
Yeah, I mean,
Chase will go to New York, though.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance it's Joe Burrow 1, Chase Young 2, and then, maybe someone out west, Jalen
Hurts will go, right?
Maybe Jalen Hurts goes if they don't blow the Big 12 championship game. Justin Herbert from Oklahoma or Oregon is a possibility. I mean, he's had a decent year. They've had a good, if they keep winning, maybe him. Brad says Chris Olave is clutch both as a wide receiver and a defensive back on a poorly thrown ball. He
at least 2. 3 times.
Well, there were at least 2 where he was in the end zone, and he was like, if that ball's thrown a second sooner, it's an easy touchdown. And then instead, Fields kind of waited, and he waited until he was open. He didn't throw him open. And, it turned into 1 incomplete pass and 1 kind of contested catch. But Olave could have had 2 touchdowns for about 100 yards in that first half.
That first one that he broke up, he was just getting by the guy when he had to stop and come back to break up that football. He looked back and he's like, well, shoot, gotta turn off the jets. Like in Top Gun when the flaps go up and they hit the brakes and
tap the brakes, they'll fly on by.
Exactly. That's what he had to do.
Matt wants to know what's going on with DeMario McCall. Is he hurt? He's got speed. Haven't seen him
he was
in a year.
A kick return. So
yeah, I think he's not. He was the number 2 running back at the beginning of the year. He is no longer the number 2 running back. So
no, it's J.K. and Master Teague, and there's really
and Garrett Wilson has won that punt return job.
And once you've got Justin Fields running the ball as well, there's no. Under Urban Meyer, there was never room for a 3rd running back.
Right.
And now there isn't either as long as you've got a running quarterback.
Ben says, love Austin Mack, but Chris Olave has to be on the field more. I mean he's getting plenty of snaps, it seems like. I mean, they will intentionally not
wanting him out there all the time, but that's not what they do.
Right. They intentionally do that 6 receiver rotation so that by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, the opposing defensive backs are not getting. Right. They're not in a 6-corner rotation.
And Chris Olave is able to wrestle away a ball or jump up and out better somebody for a touchdown. I think I totally get wanting to throw the ball 8 times, 9 times to him because he's awesome. Mm-hmm. But you just got to accept that that's not what this is.
Yeah.
Not with the no huddle stuff.
No. Matt says, can we get a tight end screen or something? Play calling was a little tight in the second half. Hope it's to not show the playbook. I mean,
Jeremy Ruckert played quite a bit. They started out with 2 tight ends, and they did a lot of 2 tight ends. But I think there are going to be times when the tight ends are targeted, but they weren't really throwing the ball. So, I mean, would they throw 18?
16 22? Completions all day.
Yeah, so that's coming, but for whatever reason, they just wanted to run the ball and just run it and run it and run it. But I think I don't know about a tight end screen or anything like that. Because it takes those guys a long time to get started.
Yeah, well, you're asking a lot for Ohio State to not just throw a screen pass, which they historically have not done, but also do it to a tight end, which is that's like I want a miracle and then another miracle next to that.
How many tight end screens has Ohio State run in the last 20 years, and how many have gotten a first down?
I'm gonna say 0 and challenge you to prove me wrong. Yeah, prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong, kids.
Brandon says Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison have more upside than Jonathan Cooper, which that's probably
after 4 years.
That's probably true. I mean, true freshman and sophomore. I mean, you have not been in the system as long, but I still don't think you've seen a healthy Jonathan Cooper starting. You don't quite know what he can do, and again, like it's like wide receivers. They play a rotation there. You want as many good players there. I mean, this sounds so stupid to say this out loud, but you want as many good players as you possibly can.
No, really?
Because good players are good at football.
Did you read this somewhere?
Yeah, I actually.
You've been reading magazines all the time?
I may have written that at some point. I don't know. And if not, maybe we should.
But if they didn't rotate, you wouldn't be seeing Zach Harrison this year. So they'll continue to rotate.
Yeah. Matt says, did anyone ask Franklin if Ohio State is still elite? No, I have not listened to James Franklin's entire press conference, but it's probably safe to assume he would say the answer is yes. Matt wants to know if this quality win pushes Ohio State past LSU. I would assume not. I mean, LSU plays Arkansas this week, and then I don't remember who they have next week, but I think it's no one. I think
Georgia.
They do. No, that's 2 weeks.
Next week.
Next week. Yes. Yes. I think they have. It might be A&M. Yeah.
Who A&M was?
A&M lost to Georgia, 19-13.
Oh, so they were coming back. Yeah.
Yes. So this week probably doesn't. It's entirely possible if Ohio State looks real impressive against Michigan next week, and then wins the Big Ten championship game impressively, and LSU either loses the SEC title game or looks really terrible doing it. That.
I think it's maybe they get him next week. Maybe they overtake LSU after if they beat Michigan next week. I think it would happen after the Big Ten championship game in the final rankings if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting because if you just assume LSU is going to stay number one, Ohio State might be better off losing the Michigan game and then winning the Big Ten championship game, in which case they probably come in at 4, because then you play LSU instead of Clemson. I mean. I would handicap Ohio State as a
maybe the 4 seed with much favorite over the 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean Ohio State is. I would say Ohio State has a decent chance of being a favorite over LSU because LSU does not have the defense that Clemson does, and Clemson's offense is plenty good. So,
well, do you think? I think Ohio State may have taken a hit today in the eyes of people because of this. The fact that they didn't. They only won by 11.
Against a top 10 team. Yeah. Yeah,
but we know Penn State. They lost to Minnesota. How good can they be?
Exactly. Well, that's the one thing that does kind of hurt Ohio State a little bit. There's a good side to playing a close game and looking a little sloppy and still winning. Because then, Ryan Day talked about the fact you need one of these games.
Yeah.
Because you can have the message to players about needing to be detail oriented, and that. They can kind of tune you out after a while if you're winning by 30 points every week. Yep. You have one of these, it's like, all right, well, now they know I'm serious.
Yes, exactly.
Matt says that Wade play, he dropped into the zone, picked him up coming across the field, knew that play was coming. I mean, that was I was looking through a camera lens, so I did not have a great view of that.
Get a better lens.
Yeah, Brad says also great. Arnett, Okudah, and Fuller. Nobody gives up anything, although Fuller needs to work on his ball skills. I mean.
Well, he should have picked that one off, but I mean, you're getting hit as you're catching the ball, and so he's a safety.
Right, he's not in coverage much. So, Matt says, speaking of last year's defense, you're seeing it in Oklahoma this year. Yep. Brian says, if not asked and answered, is the biggest weakness pass pro? I would say that's the biggest concern right now, I think, on this team on either side of the ball.
But I am looking forward to watching Michigan's passing game against the Ohio State corners. Because I think probably won't be able to run the ball against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to throw it to their wide receivers.
Yeah.
And this will be the biggest test for the Ohio State secondary next week but I don't expect it to be a weakness.
No. Human Bye-Bye says, honestly curious, why is the recap so much longer after the game, as I assume, as compared to the pregame? Because the pregame we generally keep to 15 or 20 minutes or so. Postgame, we're also simultaneously recording a podcast.
Plus, the pregame is the 7th time we were talking about the game that week, and there's only so much more we can say until there is new information.
Yeah. He wants to know what our breakdown of what a day looks like for us on a game day with a noon kick. That would be a great question for an episode later this week, maybe.
Yeah. We're getting kind of late here.
Yes, we are.
We've got people wanting to, I think, clean the room, and we're about 30 minutes from being kicked out of the press box entirely.
Yes. So I think we're good. Oh, Matt says, proving us wrong. Tight end screen, touchdown versus Nebraska at Nebraska, and number 13.
Show me a link.
Yeah, number 13, Rashad Berry going Gronk style. Yeah, I mean that's. All right. Maybe.
All right. If you're going to throw a screen, throw it. There
you go. Throw it to Rashad Berry.
Exactly.
If you're going to throw a screen, throw it to a defensive end.
My apologies.
That's the moral of the story.
Zach Harrison.
There you go. All right. I think we're good. We are going to have a extremely busy week.
Yeah.
We will have lots and lots of podcasts this week. Mm-hmm. We'll end up tweeting out a schedule at some point, but expect a whole bunch of stuff, including multiple Patreon exclusive shows. If you are interested in listening to those, patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly to sign up for that.
I don't know if we mentioned this. It's Michigan week.
Oh, right. Is that who they play next?
That's right. It is Michigan week. So it's the most wonderful time of the year.
I believe I sang that last year or 2 years ago. Didn't do it because we didn't get there. Maybe we'll sing on one of our upcoming shows.
Maybe you will. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. We will talk to you very